It's time for Recipe of the Day. Baked beans with ground beef is a Southern style way of taking just a little bit of ground beef and some other ingredients, and then you add canned baked beans to it, and it just stretches all of that and becomes this big pot of sweet and tangy, savory, meaty, satisfying amazingness. This is wonderful as a side dish for like a cookout or grilling event. I really love this on garlic toast as dinner, and it's wonderful if you have leftovers of this and you're having some like fried eggs for breakfast the next day. A little scoop of these beans on the side is just the thing. They're so good. So this is a big batch of beans. It will serve 18 people, a half a cup serving each. So that is quite a bit. If this is a bigger like main component of the meal, it's going to be more like 9 or 10 people. Now, you could have this recipe. That's totally fine. The only thing is I really needed 1 pound of beef to the 2 big cans of beans that I was using. And I didn't really want to make a recipe that called for like half a pound of ground beef and like half of a green bell pepper and half of an onion. You see what I mean? So once I was committed to using the full pound of ground beef, then that is how this ended up so large a quantity. What you can do though is, of course, just have everything and that's fine. Or you can actually use 1 can of beans and then the full pound of beef, and you'll end up with like half an amount, sort of. You'll want to cut some of the other ingredients down as well. So like the ketchup, the brown sugar, those sorts of things. So you see, you can adapt this for different sizes. So I think in some way the recipe is kind of a guideline more than really strict. And I think that'll become really clear as we go in a little bit more. So I know, and you know, that not all baked beans are the same. There are all kinds of flavors of baked beans and molasses and smoky ones and meaty ones and bacon and brown sugar and honey and all these different things, right? And so really depending on which kind of baked beans you buy, you're going to need to add different amounts of sweetness, right? So for this recipe, as I was developing it, I knew that. And so I put sort of the least amount of brown sugar and ketchup and Worcestershire sauce and salt that I think would be needed. So for like a really sweet brand or flavor of beans, you're going to be just fine with the amounts that I've given. But if your beans are a little bit blander or not on the sweet side as much, then you're going to be tasting and adding a little bit more of that later. So it's approximate in that way because I don't know what kind of baked beans you're going to get. My favorite, I will just tell you from the testing that I did, my favorite was to use the Bush's original baked beans. So super basic, and then you're just totally sprucing them up with all the ingredients. Okay, let's jump into making these. They are so delicious. So you're going to get out a Dutch oven or a large saucepan, like something that you'd make a nice big pot of soup in, right? And you're going to put that over medium heat, and you're adding 6 slices of chopped bacon. Now, I've probably told you this before. I do not like chopping raw bacon for some reason. I just don't like the squidgy feel of it. And so I often will fry the bacon as strips and then chop it after. Either way is fine. Just once it is cooked, you want to scoop out all of the fat from your saucepan, leaving just 2 tablespoons behind. And if you cook them as full strips, you're going to take them out, chop them up, and put them back into that pot right away. If you're using pre-cooked bacon, you're not going to get any fat from there. You're just going to chop that up, and then you're going to add it to the pot with 2 tablespoons of butter or cooking oil. And then over still medium heat, you're adding 1 green bell pepper finely chopped and 1 onion finely chopped, whatever kind of onion you want. I think it's kind of traditional to do like a sweet onion, a Vidalia, or one of those Texas sweets, but whatever onion you have is going to be great. As to the bell pepper, I use the green for that little bit of green color throughout, but you can use a different color of bell pepper, or if you want this to be a little spicy, you could do 2 jalapenos that you've seeded and finely minced. You can do those in addition to the bell pepper or instead of it. Once you've added the onion and bell pepper to the pot, you're going to increase the heat to medium high and stir and cook until the veggies are softened 3 or 4 minutes. Then push that whole bacon and vegetable mixture off to the side of your pot, and to the other side, you're adding 1 pound of lean ground beef. You can instead use a different kind of beef, a fattier one, but then you're just going to have to scoop off some of that fat later on before you proceed because you're going to have too much liquid in that pot. You can also use ground chicken or ground turkey. I would just avoid ground chicken breast or ground turkey breast here because they're going to be just a little bit too dry in this dish. The other thing that you can do is use half ground beef and half ground pork. You know, sometimes they sell those like meatloaf mixes or something like that. You can use a pound of that combination. That'll work too. I wouldn't do a full pound of ground pork just because we already have the bacon and it's just going to be a little bit fattier and richer in here that I think we need. Okay, so you've added the ground beef to the half of the pot and then you're going to season that with half a teaspoon of salt and a quarter teaspoon of black pepper and let that brown underneath for a few minutes. And once it's nice and brown underneath, kind of flip it over and then start breaking it up and stirring it into the bacon and vegetables on the other side. And then you're just going to keep cooking and stirring it occasionally until the beef is no longer pink. It's going to take 4 or 5 minutes. Then you will stir in a quarter cup of brown sugar and a quarter cup of ketchup. And because those have a little sugar in them, sugar and ketchup, I like to stir that in and let it cook for just like 30 seconds or a minute to just caramelize that a little bit. And then go in with a tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce and 2 teaspoons of yellow mustard. And then 2 28-ounce cans of baked beans with all their sauce. Everything is going in there from those cans. You're not like rinsing them or draining them or anything like you would with like kidney beans. These are baked beans in that delicious sauce, right? Now the 28-ounce cans, 2 of them, that means that we've got 56 ounces of baked beans total. If your cans are a different size, you're aiming for approximately that amount. 50 ounces to 60 ounces is going to be just fine. I am going to say that if you want to stretch this even further, like if you want to feed even more people with this, I know I talked about feeding less people at the beginning. If you want to feed more people, you can add a third 28-ounce can of baked beans to this and then not increase the bacon or the bell pepper or the onion or the beef. I mean, you can, but you don't have to. It's just going to not be as meaty and not have as much pepper and onion in it, but it's going to have quite a bit and be good. You are going to, for sure though, want to increase the amount of salt, pepper, brown sugar, ketchup, Worcestershire, and mustard. So you would use 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt, an extra dash or so of black pepper, a third of a cup of brown sugar, a third of a cup of ketchup, 1.5 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce, and 3 teaspoons of mustard. You see what I mean? So I just like did the math to figure out what half of the amount of each of those ingredients was and then added that again. So like a tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce, you're doing 1.5 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce. 2 teaspoons of mustard, you're doing 3 teaspoons of mustard. And then the point of that is just that you're stretching the beef and bacon even further to feed more people, right? Okay. So you add in your baked beans and then you stir it often until it comes up to a boil, kind of scraping the bottom. You really want to make sure that nothing is like sticking and burning down there. Then cover the pot and reduce the heat down to low and simmer it, stirring occasionally for about 10 minutes. Then take the lid off. And this is where you're going to give it a taste and adjust the seasoning because we're accounting for the different kinds of beans that you might have used, right? So this is where you taste and you can add more salt or pepper or brown sugar or ketchup or Worcestershire sauce or all of them or just some of them. So if you want a little saltier, more salt, a little spicier, a little more pepper, you want a little sweeter, more tangy, you can do more brown sugar, more ketchup, more Worcestershire sauce, right? Okay. Then at that point, it is ready to serve. It is delicious just as it is right then. But I know that some people like their Southern baked beans to be like stick a spoon in it and it stands up straight kind of thick. And if that is you, then you're going to let it simmer uncovered for about 20 more minutes. And that's going to evaporate away some of that sauce and make it thicker. I know you can taste this already. It is just so good. So much flavor in there and like really easy and a great way to feed a crowd, right? Okay. I will put the link to this recipe in the show notes for this podcast episode, or you can head to cookthestory.com/ROTD and get it there. Everything there is arranged by date. So it's helpful to know that today is June 16th of 2025. The other place you can get the link is in our Facebook group for this podcast. I post the recipe of the day link there every single day, so you can always find what I'm talking about and be inspired about what you can make that day. You can join that group at facebook.com/groups/recipeotd. I look forward to seeing you there. I'm Christine Pittman from cookthestory.com, thecookful.com, the all-new chicken cookbook, and from this podcast recipe of the day. I hope you have a great day. Let's get cooking.